Hello and welcome into Brewcast for Amazing Brew on the SB Nation Podcast Network. I am Luke Yardy, joined as always by Anthony Broom and Chris Castellani here with you Monday, May 3rd. A big day when this pod comes out tomorrow, especially for Anthony and Chris. I don't know if you guys want to get it out of the way right now for the podcast listeners not joining us here on YouTube or Twitch, with it being Star Wars Day tomorrow and whatnot. So.
I was wondering where you were going with that.
I had no idea where that was going.
Yeah, that's right. Through all the nonsense and some good nonsense that's going on throughout the sports world, I completely forgot that tomorrow is in fact Star Wars Day. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big day. So when the pod comes out, right. If you're listening on the pod, May the 4th be with you. There we go. We'll do that for you. But we got a lot of fun on the show here today. I mean, we got some good news out of the basketball program. We're definitely gonna be talking about that to begin the show. Do a little NFL draft recap. A pretty good weekend for the Wolverines, and then a bit of a polarizing thing that happened over the weekend on Saturday as well that we'll touch on. We'll also get to your questions and your comments if you're here with us live on YouTube or Twitch. Please feel free to jump in the conversation, leave the comments, ask some questions. We're going to get to it all here. But first, man, how we doing here, fellas? How we doing?
Other than the schizophrenic weather, I mean, good. Get a couple days where we get the tease of 80 degrees and what will hopefully be the first of many 80-degree days coming the summer season, and we go back to 60 and rainy. So,
must be nice.
Is it still snowing in the UP?
It was about 44 today with a little rain.
Wow, really?
It's crazy how we're worlds apart, but again, here every Monday night at 7:30 live, and then for the other people, we do the replay, so you don't hear it live. Again, a reminder: we'll take your questions and comments and such throughout the show. We'll display them on the live stream throughout the show. We'll see if we have time later to maybe take a few at the end of it. Kind of have a packed show today, but yeah, doing well. Chris, well done. You had a rant, a little throwback rant earlier today on Locked On Tigers. Shout out to you and your podcast there.
Completely justified, by the way. I think
absolutely. It's telling about the state of that team that you can coming back to a Michigan podcast or where football will be talked about, whatever.
Yeah,
that's a peaceful release for you.
How bad is it that Michigan football is the savior? That's my getaway. The team that
you want to go through the depth chart tonight. We want to just dive right into it.
You're in the bad place, Chris. You're in the bad place.
Caused us nothing but pain over the last 365 days. That's my solace. No, I'm with you completely. I appreciate the shout out there. Tigers didn't lose today, so I don't have a whole lot to be upset about. I am, to be honest, I actually really am looking forward to this show because I think that we have some really neat stuff planned, and it seems like the basketball program, hopefully, is getting to a point that the football program is where there's content never stops, and we're going to talk about it. But I was a big fan of the news that came out over the weekend, and the basic summary I feel like of this podcast already will be, I think hiring Juwan Howard was a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good, I think that's a fair statement. You're probably not going to get too much pushback on that. But yeah, like you said, DeVante Jones, reigning Sun Belt Player of the Year. This is just another thing for the Michigan basketball program. Obviously, coming from Coastal Carolina and played 3 years there and had 3 fantastic years at Coastal Carolina. Freshman of the year, second team all-conference, and then conference player of the year a year ago. And kind of just sounds, I'm not going to compare him necessarily to Mike Smith, but it's probably going to be in that similar role here, for the Wolverines. We know what Mike Smith did at Columbia, came over and really adjusted well to playing in the Big Ten. And DeVante Jones, a bit bigger at 6'1", scores the ball similarly, I'd say, averaged 19.3 points per game last year. We'll see exactly how he fits in with the rest of the offense, but going to have some weapons to play with. Obviously, with the number 1 recruiting class in the country coming in. Interestingly, we haven't touched on this. Franz has still not entered his name into the NBA draft, which I do find a little odd, but maybe taking his time and doing some feeling out here. But for the assumption, I think we're just going to assume Franz isn't going to be on the team when we talk about DeVante Jones. It'd be a nice surprise, but I don't think any of us really expect that to happen here. But like you said, Chris, this is a huge get, man, and this is something that, Juwan probably didn't want to hand it off to Zeb if he didn't feel like he was ready. But, I mean, you add the best players that you can, and this was definitely one of the best, transfer prospects that Michigan could land.
Anthony, I'll let you go ahead because I want to go last here.
Okay, yeah, no problem. It's big, and anytime you can add a guy who I should pull up the numbers. This is poor show prep on my part, but I believe averaged about 19 points per game last year. Again, it's in the Sun Belt, so there's going to be Sun Belt. I believe quality-wise is maybe even a little bit lesser than the Ivy League, so that's something to keep an eye on. But Sun Belt Player of the Year, a guy who is going to come in and be your lead guard right away. There are pros and cons to it from my point of view. I mean, the pro is obviously your starting backcourt is set. Jones will start. Eli Brooks will start. This allows them to keep him off the ball, which I think is where he's played best in his Michigan career. And, what do the other guys look like? I mean, I guess it depends on who stands out in camp and things like that. But this is big for them. And there's going to be an adjustment for Jones, just like there was for Mike Smith. Mike Smith did such a good job that, like I said, it's hard to get a feel for what the expectation is or what it should be, but you brought in someone's conference player of the year. To me, probably the top transfer guard that was on the market at the time of his acquisition, and you go from there. The cons to it would be at some point you want to find out what you have in Zeb Jackson. Yeah. Frankie Collins is a top 50 guy. Kobe Buffkin's a top 50 guy. But the way that things are right now is this is the Wild West in roster acquisition, roster building. If you just gave Zeb Jackson the reins, who's to say, who knows what the future of any of these guys are? I'm not saying anyone's staying or leaving. So you've got the bird in the hand now. It allows you to bring along a guy like Collins, who Collins isn't a one and done. He's probably not even a two and done. He's going to be one of those program type of point guards that takes some time. And if you can bring a guy like that off your bench to be your backup point guard, I think that's a positive for them. What it means for Zeb Jackson, we'll see. I know they want him. He's playing more of a combo guard role too. I think he might be best served off the ball. We'll see what happens with that. But all of a sudden, where guard depth was a question mark, Eli Brooks is back by the grace of maybe the only positive thing that's happened over the last year as it pertains to COVID is that Eli Brooks will be back next year to be the veteran leader on a really young team that all of a sudden, I mean, you worry about, I know it's a number one ranked recruiting class, but this team went to the Elite Eight last year, and that's not easy to do. All of a sudden it goes from, okay, see what these young guys do and get to the second weekend of the tournament and see what happens. And all of a sudden the floor just gets a little bit higher. Again, we'll see how the roster shakes out. Maybe there might be some kind of miracle in terms of who doesn't go or who stays. I don't know. That's not me teasing anything, but assuming that Franz is out and assuming that Hunter Dickinson is back, you have to really like what they have here right now. This is a big, big time get. The transfer portal's here. It's the future of college basketball. And when you have a coach that statistically is recruiting better than everyone else because you have the number one ranked class in the country and he's hitting the transfer portal as hard as anyone else, or he's pointing and getting who he wants. You just have to feel, and he's answered the X's and O's questions. You just have to feel just a massive sense of relief that every year this Michigan roster will be packed and maxed out to the best of its ability to hopefully get past the Elite Eight, get back to a national title game, and maybe win one.
This made me shockingly happy. Like I was incredibly fired up about this. Now for next year's team, it's great. This dude can ball. Steven's video about it was excellent. This guy is going to be a gem. He's going to fit right in with this system. But what I love is what it means symbolically. And I'm not saying that Michigan basketball right now has this kind of pedigree, but I feel the way I think a lot of Ohio State football fans feel, where no matter what, no matter who's leaving, no matter which quarterback's coming and going, every year they're going to have their guys. Every year they're going to have a top 5 team. When Dwayne Haskins left, we said, okay, is this the opportunity? Nope. Justin Fields stepped right in and was even better. And they're going to lose Fields this year. And no matter who they get, I'm sure he's going to be just as good as almost anybody else in the Big Ten. That's the kind of system they have. The fact is, and I'm not saying this wasn't the case with Beeline necessarily, but I mean, you look at the recruiting record, it wasn't amazing. He did the best with what he had by far, but this is the place to be now. This is the place people want to come to. This is where the eyes of the college basketball world are on the University of Michigan at this point. The word is out. This is a program and a coach that you want to play for. And last year, I think as good as the recruiting class was last year, I think we're going to look back and say that what Mike Smith and Chaundi Brown brought to this team and what they got out of coming to Michigan, I think is going to be a bigger game changer than even the Dickinson recruit, because now bring everybody, bring your huddled masses, bring whoever fits into this system, because you're going to come in here and you're going to fit into this system, into this program. I think this is huge. And I've already talked to people who said, next year, they had a shot this year and they had a great team, but I don't know how good they're going to be next year. No, I'm telling you, they're going to be freaking good, and they're going to be good the next season. They have built something here that is not only set to be good next year, but to be good going forward for the next several seasons, because Juwan Howard is the Tasmanian devil when it comes to recruiting right now. Who he wants, he gets. And there is something, so it's like flashing back to the Tigers here for a second. Remember in the Dombrowski era when somebody became a free agent, you were like, yeah, that guy might sign here. And sometimes they didn't get their guys, but a lot of times they did. And they brought in Fielder and Victor Martinez and Torrey Hunter. And there was a point where it's like, if you want to play here, you want to win, you go to Detroit. I feel that way about Michigan basketball now, where this has officially become the place to be, I think, in the Big Ten and maybe in the country. And the DeVante Jones pickup just solidifies that. I think he's going to be an awesome addition here. Basically, every piece that Juwan has brought in, starting with saving the Franz Wagner recruitment, which he did. I mean, there were a whole lot of people who thought he wasn't going to even end up coming here when Beeline left, has ranged from a mild success, like Terrence Williams was, to an overwhelming, oh my God, this guy is one of the best players in your program type of success, like what Dickinson and Chaundi were. So I believe in the direction that it's going. And maybe it's because it is the off season, so we got some time to kind of let this marinate. But yeah, puff your chest out and be fired up about this. This is not something that we've seen here in the past, and maybe it won't be something we're going to see here again. They're in good hands. Well,
and it starts and ends with this: the criteria that was laid out at the beginning of DeVante Jones's transfer recruitment was, I want to go somewhere where I have a chance to win a championship. Mm-hmm. And that's not the first time you've heard that from guys that are coming here, as transfers the last couple of years, and the recruits. This is not only a good place to be, the brand is strong, the coach is strong. It's a place that guys know they can come and they're going to have a chance to hang a banner. Mm-hmm. COVID year aside, where they didn't play a tournament, Michigan's 1-for-1 there. We can call that year 0 as far as I'm concerned. Last year, being the first full season of the Juwan Howard era, you hung a banner, and you almost hung a second banner without your best player.
Yeah. And you could make the argument that what he did in year 1, given the roster and the way that, and Beeline left the program in good standing, but the fact that, considering what they'd lost, that they overachieved. Like, for them to be what was probably going to be like a 7 seed second round team, you look back at that team compared to the roster they had last year, it is night and day. And I think that's going to be the kind of turnover we're going to have here. It is a very exciting time to be a Michigan basketball fan right now.
It's really interesting to watch him navigate a new era of team building, because we had the long-standing one-and-done era, but Anthony kind of alluded to it. It's turned it into the transfer portal era, but I think there's a happy medium in there, and it's kind of cool to watch him navigate it that way, because as of now, obviously the DeVante Jones, this is the first transfer portal signing for Michigan this year, so we don't know if there are going to be any more dominoes to fall. But like Anthony said, the backcourt is set. with DeVante Jones and Eli Brooks. You have this recruiting class coming in. If Zeb stays, I believe Terrence Williams is going to be staying. I think Hunter Dickinson's going to be back. So you have experience coming in with DeVante Jones, obviously experience returning with Eli Brooks and Hunter Dickinson and some guys who got some tick off the bench. Then you bring in these extremely talented freshmen, and there has to be, like a cohesion of all three of those. I feel like are really important to winning in college basketball here today. So for him, like we've said, in year number 3 here to kind of be navigating it on the fly, but doing as well as he is, I mean, it's cool to watch. And on top of all that, man, he's a good coach. It's not like helps. He's just a good recruiter. Like, he's a good coach. He's good at teaching the game, and he's good at getting guys to play well together. I mean, that's far and away the biggest piece of the puzzle, and he's got it.
Well, you nailed it too. I mean, the coach, the programs that can nail the recruiting trail and maybe steer, I won't say steer clear of the one and dones. I think the G League is going to kind of level the playing field, so to speak, because all those guys are going to Duke and Carolina, and those coaches like the Coach K's, that you're seeing it with Tom Izzo now starting to bring transfers in too. The programs that can nail it on the recruiting trail, that are nailing it in the transfer portal, and like you said, a cohesion, a mixture of that, they're not just going to win, they're going to stay winning. They're going to stay good. I mean, this might be what creates the next kind of wave of quote unquote blue blood programs. So Michigan's throwing themselves into the conversation. I think it probably takes, I mean, they're essentially there right now. I'm talking under Juwan. We'll see how it keeps developing. But what we've seen so far, he's nailing it, and he's passed every benchmark with flying colors. I don't think a lot of people, we know what the narratives are about his hiring, and some of them were on this show early on, but what else can you say about the guy? He's passed every single test, every single one, except for the 2 biggest ones you can pass, which haven't had a chance to do yet.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm with you completely. It's a very fun, exciting time. And I'll say this before we move on. I know nothing about Franz Wagner. I would still say I am 90% sure that he's going to go pro. But the time he's taken is worthy of a
Yeah.
Because even if he goes, it is clear he's putting some thought into this, which reaffirms our belief that's obviously true, that there's something magnetic about playing for Juwan Howard. Because and look, I know he had a horrible game against UCLA. There's no reason why Franz Wagner shouldn't go pro. He has basically nothing left to prove in regards to his ceiling, his athleticism. He's not going to get bigger. He's not going to get stronger. His stock isn't going to go much higher, I don't think, playing another year of college. The fact that we got guys thinking about it reaffirms the fact that this will not be a Calipari, bring in 5 stars. All right, you're gone. Bring in the next group of 5 stars. Oh, these didn't work. Okay, then we got it's going to be a program, not different individual teams, but a whole a string of 3-4 year guys that are going to do some damage for you. I think that's one of the more exciting, underrated parts of this whole thing, is that it's not just NBA talent that's going to be one and done guys. I mean, we've had guys stay at this program who have played for 2 different coaches. I mean, how many times have we collectively thought to ourselves, yeah, I think Brandon Johns might just end up transferring. He was one of Michigan's best players in the tournament last year. It's a fun time.
I want to touch on this question from Steve Schultz real quick. Real quick answer. Well, I mean, we had 6'1" and like 5'9" last year in the backcourt.
Let's read the question for the people who will be taking this podcast in.
Oh, okay, that's right. Yeah, my bad.
Come on, Mr. Radio.
Yeah. Does a starting backcourt of 2 6'1" guards concern you? The answer is no, because obviously Eli Brooks and Mike Smith were fantastic last year. DeVante Jones is a bigger than Mike Smith, so no. Does not concern me at all.
And dude, when was the last time they had a point guard who was over 6'1"? Because I mean, Simpson wasn't. Walton, I don't think was. Burke wasn't.
You could stretch Burke, I guess. I mean,
I guess. But on his best day,
if he had some good insulation in his shoes, he was 6'1".
Yeah. So I mean, people do make it. that's a big deal when your 3 and 4 guys don't have size. The fact is Hunter Dickinson is the size of a house, and they got
a 6'10" and 6'11" guy coming in Houston. And
well, here's the thing too, is that you can bring Zeb Jackson off the bench, who's 6'5", and Caleb Houston can probably guard 1 through 4. So if there's a matchup where you're playing a guard with size, I think you have the ability to match that if you need to. So it will kind of come down to, if you have 2 6'1" guards starting that can't score, that might be a little iffy, but we know that Eli Brooks can score. Obviously, DeVante Jones, it's going to be a step up in competition, but he can score, he can play. So I'm not too concerned about it. I think we get, I don't know, the basketball is kind of getting a little bit smaller anyways, which is crazy to say because Michigan has a 7'2" throwback center that they will build their team around now.
Like Mike Smith did struggle at times due to size late in the season against some of those teams. But, I mean, at the end of the day, he was very, very good for Michigan last year. And DeVante Jones, I don't think, would have similar problems.
Right. And the offense, and I think he's going to be an excellent player, the offense is not going to run through DeVante Jones. You know, if it was, then it might be a little bit different. But this is going to be, it'll be Dickinson's team next year. I mean, if Franz somehow comes back, it'll probably be him. But, you know, him and Brooks are going to be the big scorers. And
can I say something about Franz really quick? Because I see people talking about it in the chat, and everyone always said, like, right now he's a lottery pick in a lot of these mock drafts. Yeah. And I would assume when he does the athletic testing, he'll stay there, or even if he just slips a little bit, he's still a first-round pick. Yeah. There are fans, and we see this anytime there's an NBA decision to be made, that will go, oh, well, he needs to improve on this. He's not so great at this. Like, there's this super Frankenstein. Unless you're the number 1 pick in the draft, unless you're a top 5 pick, you have no business leading because you have things you need to improve on. The guy's ready. He looks the part. He's ready to go pro. A lot of these guys, especially when you're as long and athletic as he is, probably will be a little better, a little more of a fit going to the pros because the floor is so much more wide open. We always want these guys to stick around. And then if they stick around and don't play as well, it's, he was a bust. I told you last year that he wasn't, it's the devil's advocate stuff. It's the, if you're ready to go, and I know people say, oh, well, if he comes back, his stock will stay the same. The longer you stay in college basketball, it's like the second you drive a car off the lot, it loses its value. So,
like, I understand it's a different sport, but Marvin Wilson just went undrafted in the NFL draft, and he was probably at least second rounder at the latest if he comes out, if he's, in the draft last year. So the moral of the story is if you are, like you said, if you're a top 10 pick, if you're probably a lottery pick.
Dude, look no further than Isaiah freaking Livers.
Yeah, go. I mean, absolutely go. 100%.
2 years in a row. Your season ends. Last year wasn't his fault, but he was injured last year. That probably affected his pro stock going into the last year when he tested the waters. Now he's in a walking boot for 5 more months. It's when you have the opportunity to go, you go. So. Finn,
and I would love to have him back.
He's not going to come back and be Imani Bates. He's not going to go to the gym, learn a Texas 2-step, and be a top 5 pick. That's not what he is. So he's already a first-round pick. If he comes back, that's awesome. It's great for him. It's great for Michigan. But I get tired of the fans that are just like, oh, well, he's got to improve on this. Yeah, he does, but maybe I'd like to improve on that while I'm making millions of dollars instead of making the NCAA billions of dollars. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, maybe there's something to be said about the potential for the name, image, likeness thing coming back, because obviously he's going to be a bit of a superstar in Michigan, no question, and maybe even nationally. So maybe he's waiting on some details on that. I'm not 100% sure here. But speaking of drafts, well, we just had the NFL draft, and Michigan actually, let's see here, they were tied for fifth, the fifth school with the 5th most players drafted. 8 players went from the University of Michigan football team. And that's cool and all. And I understand there's, we had 1 first-round pick, the rest were 3 and later, but to have 8 players drafted in the season they just had, man, almost just like I'm happy for every one of those guys that got drafted, but it was kind of a dagger to the heart a little bit as well. I'm not gonna lie.
Correct. Yes. Happy for all those guys. Especially, look, I know the frustration that we had about last season, and I don't take back any of it. But if you're not happy for Kwity Paye, then you're just a crazy person. Like you just don't have a soul. I mean, you talk about a guy who's just had an unbelievable journey. I only wish we could have seen him more, but I'm happy. I think he's going to a really good situation in Indianapolis there as well. You're right, man. And the one argument would be it's not a whole lot of position players necessarily, though. You see guys that like I think Nico Collins, even though the Texans are a mess and who knows who their quarterback is going to be, in the right situation, Nico Collins I think has Pro Bowl potential. I really do. Chris Evans was the weird one to me. I saw a lot of people saying, "Hey, this guy was sneaky good at Michigan." You're right; he was so sneaky that Harbaugh forgot he was on the team half the time. But other than that, I no real surprises. Ben Mason, I guess, was kind of like, I don't know. I didn't think Ben Mason was really anything special. Like, I remember him fumbling a handoff when Anthony and I were watching a game against Wisconsin in 2019. And every so often he'd make a nice block. But, he's a football guy, he's a Michigan guy, whatever. No, I mean, you're happy for those guys, but it only elevates the temperature in the room regarding the pressure that's on Harbaugh. Because, I mean, how many more guys are you going to put to the NFL that I won't say any of these guys necessarily underachieved, but aren't being put in the right situation. Like I don't feel like Nico Collins was ever lacking in effort or skill set or anything like that. I just think circumstances did not allow him to reach his full potential, but I think he may in the NFL. So now I'm with you completely. Well, you're happy.
He won't have a stable quarterback position.
Yeah, I was going to say he's not in a great situation. That's for sure. Oh, yeah, I felt horrible for him.
Yeah, I know that sucks, but yeah, you're happy for those guys. But you're right, man. I mean, it's because who had the most players drafted? It was Bama, right? I mean, it had to be.
Bama and Ohio State, I think.
Yeah, Bama and Ohio State each had 10. Georgia and Notre Dame had 9, and then Michigan and Florida had 8.
Right, so that doesn't make any sense because we're talking about 4 teams that are year in and year out. Even Notre Dame, people make fun of Notre Dame. Notre Dame's in the playoffs like every third year. Yeah. Right, yeah, they've been in there twice. Brian Kelly's done a great job. Yeah, they get their teeth kicked in, but who doesn't? By the those. It doesn't make sense that those 4 it makes sense that those 4 teams are putting guys in the NFL. It doesn't make sense that the team right behind them, not just this year, but consistently over the last several years, is Michigan, considering the success or lack thereof that they've had over the last several years. That is, it's maddening.
Well, it's frustrating in that, we talk about how there's a talent gap with the Ohio States, the Clemsons, right, and the Alabamas of the world. Sure, recruiting-wise, yeah, there is a talent gap. And when push comes to shove, a lot of these teams have better athletes than you, but Michigan brings talent in. You don't have 8 to 10 guys drafted every single year because you don't bring in guys. It's not even that they don't develop these guys either. I mean, they're pro. It's not like a Marvin Wilson situation like Luke alluded to where dude was a former 5-star recruit and goes undrafted, or Dylan Moses, who I think went undrafted or came off the board really late. And once you get into the 6th or 7th round, it's kind of a fever dream for me. But it seems like in every draft profile that Trevor and I wrote this year, one of the knocks against the players was that there's either not enough film or the production wasn't there. Or I think the Packers listed Carlo Kemp as a linebacker when they announced or he signed with them as an undrafted free agent. That's the second Michigan defensive lineman that they've brought onto their roster since Rashawn Gary that played defensive line or played, kind of a big defensive line role at Michigan and moved them to linebacker. So it speaks to, Rashawn Gary was drafted to be an edge rusher. He was a run anchoring defensive end at Michigan. It's just, it's so frustrating. And it's good for the program in that they still can technically sell. Yeah, we're sending guys to the NFL. But every time I heard Jim Harbaugh's name this weekend was, James Hudson, offensive tackle, Cincinnati. What's he known for? He's known for beefing with Jim Harbaugh on his way out the door. That was what the broadcast led with. Rashad Weaver, who is in trouble for other things now, but a guy who had his offer pulled by Michigan, and winds up going to Pitt and being a 4th round pick. I think it was, again, not a good dude, dealing with some other pretty ugly stuff right now. But the narrative all weekend is the guys. Benjamin St. Just, he was the highest former Michigan defensive back. He was drafted higher than Ambry Thomas was. Wasn't good enough to play at Michigan, or there was the weird medical retirement was the deal with him. It's just the narrative all weekend was that these guys left Michigan and got drafted, or the guys that Michigan had drafted should have gone much higher. Cam McGrone, still a tongue twister to me, has the talent to be a top 50 pick in the NFL. Yeah. Now, the torn ACL didn't help him, but he slides into the 5th round.
Well, how much of like Ambry was his medicals? Because I know he had to sit out because he had some medical issues. I mean, the Cowboys took a couple of corners ahead of him that I would have much rather had Ambry Thomas. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, that's because the Cowboys are the Cowboys too. Sorry, not to dog on your team.
Coming from a Lions fan, that really hurts.
Hey, we had 4 hours to hash this out the other night, which did well, by the way. We had set a modest goal of 500. We raised $600. So thanks to everyone who tuned into the draft stream. Shout out to the people at Chad Tuff. It was a good time. We'll do something again like that soon. But I feel like if you're a day 2 pick means that teams see you as a starting caliber player, and Michigan wound up having 4 of those guys. So that's good and fine. Kwity Paye is a 1st rounder. That's great. His best football, I think, is still ahead of him.
So right here too, I want to shout out Let's Toast Media here in the YouTube comments saying, we haven't developed anyone in 6 years. I'll grant you that they've missed on developing a lot more than they've hit, but Kwity Paye was just was the 487th ranked recruit, coming into college. He was just picked in the 1st round.
This was like the 10th starting defensive lineman that they've had drafted under Harbaugh. So they've done
a good job with defensive linemen, at least.
I would argue they find guys and they do develop them, but they put them in roles where they might where they're just not set up for. Again, we know the deal. They don't play the roles that they should. Nico Collins. By God, I mean, look at the testing numbers. That guy could have been a 2nd round pick. There are some years he'd be a 1st round pick if the production was there. But they looked at him 4 times a game. Ambry Thomas, I mean, 3rd round has kind of been the sweet spot for some of these Michigan defensive backs that have been drafted under Harbaugh. So I think that's a great spot for him. By the way, going to San Francisco,
good.
I think the good thing about these guys that get drafted is they usually wind up with teams where I think they're going to do pretty well. Jalen Mayfield is going to go to Atlanta. Probably not a tackle at the next level. They're going to have him come in and compete at left guard right away. But again, someone who played out of position at Michigan because the testing numbers suggested he was a guard too. So I'll tell you the one fit that I do like. Chris Evans going to Cincinnati. Now, they're, for whatever reason, don't seem all that interested in protecting Joe Burrow. They keep trying to build a fantasy football team, giving him all these toys and whatnot. But Chris Evans, Joe Mixon can't stay healthy, and they don't really have a number 2 running back there. So, and I talked
story there, by the way. Chris Evans. When I talk about redemption,
he's going to have a shot to do something there. So, Michigan develops guys, they recruit guys, but again, the story has been when push comes to shove, who's being put in the right. I mean, Ben Mason took defensive line reps at Michigan. Are you kidding me?
I hope he does at Baltimore too.
Well, we'll see. They had a long snapper drafted though. Shout out Cameron Cheeseman.
Yeah,
I had to remind you who it even was.
No, I was saying because he was, but there was another one drafted too. I mean,
there were 2 long snappers. 2 long snappers drafted in a row, I think.
Yeah, has that always been a thing? Because I feel like I was gonna say that felt weird. I'll be honest with you. Like good for Cam Cheeseman, like no question, but I feel like that's not really a thing, man.
No, Bob Quinn drafted a long snapper, and he didn't in his first draft, I think it was with the Lions, and was roasted for it. And the dude didn't even make the team. So,
haven't the Lions have had the same long snapper for like 20 years now?
Don Muehlbach, baby. It's a Hall of Famer. There's a whole wing of the Hall of Fame waiting for him.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, like you said, the program, they get to tout how many players they got drafted, but it all comes down to, you want to compete in college football, you got to put skill guys in the first round. I mean, you just look at that picture of the Alabama receivers. You know, they did the Photoshop of that picture of all them in their Bama jerseys, and then, you know, the NFL jerseys. That's what it takes to win championships, you know, especially in today's college football. You got to put skill position guys in the first round. You got to have that talent.
Yeah, I mean, Alabama's kind of the I won't say the exception to the rule, but like, to have 4 guys go in the first round is insane. But even LSU, I mean, you have 2 guys that went in the first round, Justin Jefferson last year, Jamar Chase this year. Terrace Marshall goes in the, I think, the second round to Carolina. So, yeah, Michigan, I don't think they've had a receiver taken in the second round since Funchess, right? Yeah. And he's the highest since Braylon, which was 2005. So that's what it comes down to.
If someone would have told you that when those guys came in the 2017 class, what would you have thought? That none of them would have been taken.
They transferred
the third round.
That the program would be on shaky footing heading into year 7, and that
right anyway, I guess.
Yes, that's where we're at.
Yeah, that 2017 class, when the 30 for 30 comes on what went wrong with the Jim Harbaugh era, that 2017 recruiting class will be a major part of it. So, but I'm not trying to be negative. We'll save that for the end of the show.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty close, unless Chris has anything more to touch on that.
No, I think you guys covered it.
So we did have a little controversy here, hey? On Saturday. Obviously, as we all know, Michigan State, their streak ended of getting a player drafted. But, a Michigan coach, and let me get the name here, Coach Ryan Osborne, he actually just came over from UT Martin. That's why I'm not as up in arms about this as everyone else is. Like, if this was Josh Gaddis, I get it, but like, Ryan Osborne didn't have a damn thing to do with that loss to Michigan State. You know, like I get it, like, Michigan lost, and you know, you shouldn't troll him or whatever, but he's probably looking at it like, man, that didn't have anything to do with me. And I kind of agree with him. Like, is it a great look? No, but are people like I've seen it, you know, framed as like a cell phone and stuff like that. It can't be a cell phone if he didn't have anything to do with it, you know?
No, but you got to read the room. You got to read the room in that situation. I mean, for people who don't know, what did he say? That there was the article that was posted that said Michigan State failed to have
all he said was, you hate to see it, you know?
Yeah, he posted with the caption, you hate to see it. I just, like, this stuff drives me nuts, and it probably drives me more nuts than other people because this is a very personal rivalry to me. But, like, I give Harbaugh credit for this. His whole social media, fiasco. I mean, I can't really call it a circus that he'd had for so long is gone. I don't know if he's tweeted in like months, and if he does, they're all generic tweets. I think because he realized that he doesn't really have a leg to stand on anymore. There's the tweet for the people who are watching it in the chat. So at this point, you go into the submarine, and there's no way to, if you try to take any shot at your rivals at this point, especially State, you are rightfully, clap back at with the fact that you played a team that had 10 minutes of practice, didn't know who their coach was for a month, and was 24-point underdogs against, and a quarterback that ended up transferring to the MAC, who you made look like Patrick Mahomes. You can't do it. And so it's like, this is why and I get your point, Luke, but like, this is why Michigan football is a joke to a lot of people. They're not the biggest joke. Like, they're not, what Rutgers was under Chris Ash, but if you're going to, it's target practice at this point. Read the room. Your team sucks. I don't care if this is your first year. You can't do, I'm sorry. You can't do that under those circumstances. You just got to shut up and you got to take it. And by the way, who cares about a draft streak? Everyone is up in arms about it on both sides. Who gives a rat's ass? I would trade 8 draft picks. Hell, I'd trade 8 first-round draft picks for a win against my rival when I'm favored by 24 points. Like, that's just one of those things that people, like to make a big deal about Colton Pouncey did post a great article on The Athletic about how like this was kind of the final culmination of the D'Antonio. I understand the D'Antonio era. I understand all of that. I do, but who really cares? Like it's not like, don't make a thing out of it. Go out and win some games. Like Hunter Dickinson, for instance, posted that thing when Amani Bates decommitted that everyone was up in arms about. I mean, any sane person viewed it as just normal rivalry fodder. It was whatever. But like Hunter Dickinson's Big Ten Freshman of the Year. Hunter Dickinson's beat Michigan State. Hunter Dickinson went to the Elite Eight, was second team All-American as a freshman. He's kind of got some room to stand on here. It just bothers me. It's just so like prime example of Michigan arrogance that makes me just want to pull my hair out. Like it's the equivalent of the Tigers clapping back at the Cleveland Indians because they haven't won a World Series since 1948. You lose every day. Shut up.
So here's the thing on that. It's like people are talking about the Michigan arrogance, but like you throw it back to December and everyone was pissed off that Michigan showed humility with Ward Manuel saying Ohio State deserves to go to the Big Ten championship game and stuff like that. I know, but like the same people who are mad at this Michigan, this Osborne thing were mad about that too. And it's just like, I mean, you can't win, I guess. Like
it's not arrogance. You know what it is? It's aloofness and lack of self-awareness.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Every fan base is arrogant. Every fan base, every coaching staff thinks they are God's gift to the green earth. They're, all that stuff. All that again, the narratives from what are people talking about Michigan football this weekend? It's that the things I talked about earlier with how Jim Harbaugh was talked about during the draft. It's, the whatever you want to call it, trolling, ignorance, whatever it is. And I know people say, oh, Michigan had a long snapper drafted. Michigan State didn't even have a single player. And they still came to your building and kicked your ass.
Right, exactly.
They kicked your ass last year. Shut up. If you're going to have an off season where you don't televise a spring game, you don't let anyone in, everything's quiet, you're going in the submarine, stay quiet! I don't get it. You have nothing to gain by this. Nothing to gain by it.
I'm with you.
It's so annoying. And it's so irritating.
I'm with you completely, brother. That's perfect. You're so right. No, you're so right. Like it's,
if you're going to stay quiet, shut up and go away till August.
I'll say this honestly: if they would have gone 3 and what they go last 2, if they would have gone 3-3 and beaten Michigan State by 2 touchdowns, I could be like, okay, you're still underachieving every year, but hey, you beat them, you knocked them off this last year. The team was terrible, but you beat them handily. Okay, first year guy. It's just you got to read the room. You got like you don't. It's like
all I've heard about all off season is how. The rebuild the rebuild with Mel Tucker's going great. Spring practice went awesome. They're getting these transfers that come in. And all I hear about Michigan is that their coaches say something stupid. Their admissions department can't get their recruits to sign with the school because things are so stringent. The head coach gets blasted during draft weekend twice. You have players all over the board that should have gone much higher, and their coaching staff didn't put them in positions to win. It's so frustrating. And I know, like, I can't even begin to tell you how annoying it is to deal with all that. So if you're going to stay quiet. Don't tweet. I know you have to do what things are. What's the recruiting message from a tweet like that?
Yeah.
Is it that, hey, we may not always beat our rivals, but we sure as hell are going to get you drafted in the 5th round. You bet your ass we'll do that. I don't get it. I don't understand that.
I mean, didn't Jim Tressel come in off Ohio State loss to Michigan and say that they were going to be proud of his kids going up? Like, they lost. They didn't have to stay quiet. You don't have to stay quiet just because you lost. Like, I hate that line of thinking. Like, they brought all these guys in. They cleaned house on the staff for this exact reason, to bring young, energetic guys into the program to lift some energy into it.
That's fine.
Give me more of it. I want more of it.
I don't care about that Michigan State didn't have what does that mean for the rivalry? What does that mean? What's the message there?
And also, takeaway? What Tressel did was a little bit different because that was not this was a point like the Simpsons character going, ha ha, like at Michigan State for not getting anybody. Tressel basically said, we're going to go out next year and we're going to beat Michigan. I don't have a problem with that necessarily, but I get both your logic. I really do. I'm more with Anthony here, where you have to have some semblance of self-awareness. You can't be Andy Bernard punching a hole in the wall in Dunder Mifflin office because somebody put your phone, in the ceiling. Like, you just
at least be a little sneaky about it. I mean, if you want to say hate to see it with a crying laughing emoji, fine. You screenshot there's no I don't know. I guess I like creativity in my if something like that comes from Scott Bell, great. If it comes from Lance, if it comes from Ant Wright, if it comes from the Mesa Brew account, whatever. That's fine. It's so silly coming from. It's just a lack of awareness and aloofness from a coaching staff that, new or not. I mean, why? I just don't know what there is.
I mean, hell, the loss to Michigan State probably got this man an opening for him to get in there and be a coach. Yeah, he probably loves it. He's probably happier than hell that they lost that game last year.
Wait, I'm not hating on the individual. I'm not hating on. It's just it's more frustration of what the offseason of narratives have been. And that's what we're talking. We're not talking about the 8 guys that were drafted this weekend. A lot of people online are talking about the lack of awareness from the program. Again, it's just, if you're going to stay quiet and be in a submarine, you could just think for 2 seconds. That's all. It's a bad look. That's all. I don't think it's a terrible look. I think anyone should be in trouble, or it's not nearly as bad as when Josh Gaddis, went on Twitter and, was thumping his chest for why Ohio State deserves to make the playoff. But it's not even, again, my frustration isn't even with him. It's just everything. It's May, and I'm frustrated.
2 weeks from now, everyone's going to forget about this. Yeah. But it's just frustrating that these coaches and players sometimes as well make this the topic of conversation. Like, with the first half of the show, where we're talking about DeVante Jones and a team that was in the elite, that is content that's positive. That's you're driving home the idea that this is potentially going to be an elite program. And we're talking about a coach who sent out a dumb tweet, and we have to. It was a big deal. It's just, it goes back to the whole premise of win first and then put some middle fingers up at people. Until then, it's been too long without success for them.
How many times they're going to poke the bear?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
That's all. Because the frustrating thing is
when they have a losing record under Harbaugh against Michigan State, guys. I mean, come on.
No,
the fact that you don't have a winning record against what Michigan State has been in the last 6 years is embarrassing.
I'm with you.
Let's just call it that's all. I mean, 2 of those losses should have never happened. One of them was a cosmic gift from the football gods, fine, but it's just when Michigan gets made fun of, it doesn't spark anything in them. I think that's what's frustrating too. Is that when someone else pokes the bear, it's just, they turn it.
I guess I just mean I don't think Michigan State's a bear. Like, 3-3 against them. They've got 3 single-digit wins against.
Who over the next 3 years? Who would you rather be? Would you rather be
Michigan? 100%. Are you kidding me? What?
Okay.
With the way that they're.
That's assuming. Okay, this is where this year is going to be so important.
They just signed a top 10 class.
Yeah, but they do every year.
They signed a top 5 class in 2017, and 20 of those guys played elsewhere or are in jail.
For Michigan State to win 2 of those games against Michigan, it took a fumbled punt and a monsoon and granted, Michigan's coaching staff was incredibly stupid in that 2017 game. That 100%. I'll promise I'll give you that. They just 2 years ago, they just beat Michigan State by 34. They ran them out of the building.
Right, but look what happened. Which they should have doubled.
Why would you rather be Michigan State? I really want to know that.
Because it seems like the guys there are excited to be there.
Yeah, it seems like something's being built as opposed to being torn down, which it seems to be at Michigan. I get it. Look, you're right. On paper, it should be Michigan, but it should be Michigan every year. Like, on paper, Michigan beats Michigan State every year since 2012. I mean, maybe 13 being the only exception, but besides that, they always have a better recruiting class. They always have more talent. They always have higher paid assistants. They should win this game every year, but they don't. And so it's kind of getting to a point where it's like, I'll believe the consistency when I see
why wouldn't you want to be the program that should win the game? Like, regardless of whether you do, if you go 500, like, why wouldn't you rather be the program that should win the game?
Because I don't feel like they're building to anything. I feel like at best the wheels are continually spinning. And Michigan State, like, I'm not saying Mel Tucker's Nick Saban, but I get the impression him winning 2 games with that dog shit roster last year should have won a Big Ten Coach of the Year. They had a bunch of MAC players and they still beat you. And it makes me think, okay, with more talent, with his guys, he's probably going to build to something where I don't have that belief under Harbaugh. Now, with a different coach, I'd probably have a different answer. Like, if they would have let go of Harbaugh and they brought in, let's say they bring in Matt Campbell, I'd probably be on board and say, yeah, I'd take Michigan. But I feel like I can't, like, actively be like, oh, we're in a better spot when the wheels are spinning in the mud for the last 3 years.
I'm taking the 5-star quarterback. That's what I'm doing.
Hey, look,
fine.
I hope you're right.
Can I cut through this to say, I think this is the first true argument we've really ever had on this show.
I was just
probably pretty close. I think
we've officially reached the point where we're such good friends that we can argue and not give a shit about it.
Yeah. No, I'll forget about this 5 minutes after.
Right.
And this is the only team. This is the only team we can argue about anyway.
Right.
Yeah,
there's not much really to argue about with Michigan basketball right now.
This is my biggest issue is that I don't know if Michigan State football is ruining friendships right now. So that's why I give them the nod. I don't know. It's again, I'm here for all of it. I totally get both sides of the debate. It's just there is Jim Harbaugh coming into Michigan was his own words. He was going to bring enthusiasm unknown to mankind. And it just seems like all of and to be fair, people don't want the offseason juice anymore for Michigan because all it does is get people too high and then it crashes down. But there's been nothing, like everything that's happened this offseason has either been quiet or a negative or some kind of hurdle or something that we talk about on this show that's just kind of annoying. And it feels like, I don't know, how many more times is year 3 where it starts to click for Josh Gaddis? Was it truly Don Brown's defense holding it back? That's where this year is fascinating. Because they could go 9-3 or 8-4, which I think the talent is there to do that. And depending on what it looks like, people are going to see very different things. So I don't know. I pick a direct. I don't know. I'm totally frazzled because we're arguing and
let's wrap it up. We're this is a good place to end it. We're in a good spot.
Are we taking any questions?
I don't know if
I didn't see any that
Malachi wants us to recap basketball to end on a good note.
DeVante Jones, great signing.
DeVante Jones,
doing a great job.
Juwan Howard, home run hire. Everything's going good there. So
go on YouTube, watch some highlights of last season. It'll get you fired up.
Yeah. And go watch some highlight tapes of the class coming in.
Yeah. All right, let's get out of here, man.
Yeah, it's getting quiet and awkward now, so we got to.
Chris, where can we find you on social media?
I don't know where to find me. Dude, this is great. This is a great show. I'm not angry about this at all. At Castellani 2014. That's at Castellani 2014. I have another show, Locked On Tigers. That's at Locked On Tigers on Twitter. My YouTube page is in the link to my Twitter profile. Go to Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star review of Locked On Tigers. Go to Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star review of the Brewcast and of the programs that we do here on Maize and Brew. We're killing it, putting out good content. Looking forward to what the off season brings. So please follow. Oh, and Instagram as well, updating stories, posting my post-game videos there as well, Chris Castle 95. So give me a like, give me a follow on all those platforms, and I appreciate you doing that.
Anthony, where can we find you?
Well, the next location you can probably find me is therapy. Like this needs to be something. This will come up. No, just kidding.
Is this not therapy? You get to just.
It is. This is actually very therapy.
This counts. Yeah.
I was thinking about yelling all weekend. So great, we got that out of the way. You can follow me on Twitter at Anthony T. Broom. Follow the website on Twitter at Maize and Brew. Please subscribe to not only our podcast but our YouTube channel. We're on Twitch, also on Facebook Live. We've added that to the repertoire. Shout out to everyone who watched live. We're live every Monday at 7:30. There will be weeks coming up where we take breaks because, hey, it's kind of the off season now. So we'll see what it's like what the news cycle is like will probably determine when we take days off. So we'll do our best to keep you abreast of all of that. So Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your shows, your video, we're there. Join the Discord. That's pinned to our Twitter page. A lot of good conversations over there. So that's it for my plugs this week. So good show. Like to yell sometimes. Sometimes just got to get it out. But always a good time with you fellas.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at Luke Giardi, LukeGhiardi. Definitely want to thank everyone that's been here in the live chats for Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, man. I feel like we've unlocked kind of a new level of the show with you guys being a part of it. So really appreciate you guys hanging out with us every Monday at 7:30. And I can only imagine what football season's going to be like with this. But really appreciate you guys. For those listening on the podcast, thank you as well. Subscribe, rate, leave a review. And we're going to keep it rolling here. And, August and September will be here before you know it. For my partners, Anthony Broom and Chris Castellani, I'm Luke Giardi, and we'll see you next time on Brewcast.